All right. Well, I don't think we know who's who either, so we'll have to ask the audience.
All right, as we get started, let's just start with a show of hands. How many people were here in 2013 at the Bitcoin conference? All right, how many people were here in 2015? All right, how many people were here in 2019? Woo. How many people were here in 2020? Oh, just kidding. All right. So, Cameron and Tyler, you guys were some of the earliest investors in Bitcoin. And I've publicly said it before. I think that you guys are going to end up being some of the best investors in the world. And the reason being that you had such deep conviction to go and put a sizable amount of money, right? Most people who found Bitcoin, they either didn't have a lot of capital or they didn't have the ability to go and buy millions of dollars of Bitcoin. Why have you guys held on this entire time? There's been volatility, all this stuff. Like, what has kept you guys so convicted since the very early days until today?
So we still think it's really early. We think Bitcoin's gold 2.0. It will disrupt gold, so its market cap has to be 10 trillion or more, because that's the market cap of gold. So Bitcoin's hovering around 1 trillion now. We still think it's at least conservatively a 10x from here. So even at 35,000, it feels like a really good buying opportunity long term, because we think at a $10 trillion market cap, we think one Bitcoin will be worth $500,000. And we think that could happen inside this decade, definitely the next 5 years. So we're hodlers at least until $500,000. And then at that point, you won't even have to sell because you can borrow off it or whatever.
Right. Yeah, the thesis hasn't really played out yet. We're like 1/12 of the way there. And when we wrote that thought piece in August, Bitcoin was at 13,000. It hit, I think, 64.
That was this August.
This August, you know. So the story's really just playing out. It's just getting started.
Yeah. And when we came to, so we keynoted Bitcoin 2013. The price of Bitcoin was $130. I think the market cap was under 3 billion.
3 billion market cap. That's like a small, you know, shitcoin today.
Yeah. So, you know, we've seen this, but yeah, like Cameron said, our gold 2.0 thesis is that Bitcoin disrupts gold, and we think that's the conservative bull case. Obviously, Bitcoin's a lot more than gold. It's an open source project that continues to evolve and can do so much more. It can become the global reserve digital currency of the world, of the galaxy. Like when we get to Mars, what's the currency going to be on Mars? It's going to be dollars? No, it's going to be Bitcoin.
One of the things that's really fascinating about the gold comparison is most people hold that $10 trillion kind of threshold as that's the market cap of gold. But what we've actually seen is that gold's market cap is likely to contract as Bitcoin's grows, right? And so there's a chance that actually the kind of flippening of gold and Bitcoin happens somewhere sub 10 trillion gold. And so to your guys' point, like that likely happens in this decade if the Bitcoin thesis plays out.
Yeah, and that's like small bull case, right? Like Bitcoin is software, gold is hardware. You can do so much more with software and iterate at such a faster clip. So I think 10 trillion is sort of like the conservative bull scenario. Gold likely contracts over the next 25 years. You put a probe on an asteroid with trillions of dollars of gold. I mean, there's so much gold in this universe. It's plentiful, like sand. Just on this planet, it's a little bit more scarce.
It's scarce, not fixed. And a lot of people don't understand that. Bitcoin's the only fixed asset that I know of in the world, in the galaxy. It's the hardest, soundest money we've ever known. 2/3 of the gold supply has been mined since 1950. So as the price for gold goes up, people find ways to mine it. It becomes more profitable. Technology breakthroughs. Think of what's happening with natural gas in the U.S. with fracking. Now we're a natural exporter. Those breakthroughs can happen with gold.
We're an oil exporter, and in 2000s they thought peak oil in the U.S. had happened, and now we export and we have.
No technological breakthrough can change the supply of Bitcoin.
It does not expand with an increase of demand or technology. It just doesn't happen. There's no commodity like that ever. First of its kind.
So in 2013, when you guys came to the first Bitcoin conference and you were the keynote, What was that like? How many people were there? Did you guys feel like maybe we're crazy? Like, what were you thinking?
I would say there'd maybe be like this row.
Yeah.
And that was it.
There was like a few hundred people in the entire conference, booth, convention center combined. So it wouldn't even come close to filling up this room. Maybe, like Cameron said, the first row. I mean, we thought it was crazy not to be there. We sort of know this is the biggest secret, best kept secret in the world,
Hiding in
that
plain
nobody
sight.
is talking about. But like, this is always going to happen. We always thought that sitting here on this stage with 20,000 people coming to Miami was always a when, not an if.
And today it's like bigger than a Comic-Con. I mean, talk about mainstreaming and global and everything. But back then, there was no license in the US. 95% of the volume was going through Mt. Gox, which is a magic card exchange that pivoted into Bitcoin in Tokyo. We bought a lot of Bitcoin there. Then we built our own cold storage system and flew around the country and stored it in safety deposit boxes. And we wanted to like build Gemini to sort of make it easier to buy, sell, and store Bitcoin and give access, like an on-ramp. But there was no license. The CFTC hadn't opined. The SEC hadn't opined. There's no New York, trust company licenses.
The IRS
IRS
hadn't guidance. So it was a complete question mark. Is Bitcoin going to be outlawed in the US? What is Bitcoin? Thankfully, Bitcoin's considered a commodity like gold through an enforcement action by the CFTC called the coin flip action, which has been upheld by the courts. But there was no precedent. There was a big question
And that
mark.
came 2 years later in 2015. So it wasn't like around the corner. It was like years later where some of this guidance and clarity came about. And the hardest thing when we were starting Gemini was getting a bank relationship. That was one of the biggest challenges. And we went to store some of our private keys in banks. They actually rejected us because they saw our name and they saw Bitcoin and they said, oh, we don't want any of that. So we had to kind of like break in a little bit, like a reverse bank heist, so you can store your stuff.
Want to learn more? Visit CryptoTutors.com.